It's time to go out to the phone line. It's been a while since we talked to this guy. Love having him on the show. We are joined by Odyssey NFL insider Brian Baldinger, host of the Odyssey Original Podcast, the best football show, featuring daily breakdowns of all the most exciting moments across the league. What's happening, Baldy?
Hey, Jack. Hi. What's going on, guys? How are you?
What's up, brother? How you been, man?
I'm doing great, man. Like Jim Harbaugh would said, who has it better than me right here, right?
I would agree with you on that. You do live a charmed life, my brother, but you do work for it. Listen, you've earned it, and you work hard, man. This is your time of the year, honestly, where you're into a lot of film study and what's going on with guys coming up. Before we get into that aspect of it, just your thoughts on the Eagles re-signing Jordan Mailata. He's your left tackle moving forward. What'd you think about that news that broke today?
Well, I mean, it just goes – they want to keep that left side together, right? So they did it with Landon, right before free agency. So, Landon and Jordan are the left side of this Eagles line for, many more years to come. So they lock those guys up. They're young. They've been healthy. They literally are each other's best friends. I mean, I don't know how – they've been in each other's weddings, best man in each wedding. I mean, it's just, they're two peas in a pod. They go everywhere together. So it's great. They keep a big, strong left side together, and Saquon should get some daylight this year for the first time in a long time.
Talk about, I guess, the difficulty, if there is a huge jump going for, and I'm speaking of Cam Jurgens now, right? Jason Kelce just retired. We're assuming right now that Cam Jurgens is going to be moved in to that center position. What's that transition like, and what have you seen from Cam Jurgens that makes you believe, or your thoughts on him making that transition to center?
I liked him coming out of Nebraska. I liked him a lot. I thought, they did not know when Jason was going to step aside. It could have even been a couple of years ago. I mean, Jason was involved in that process of kind of studying him, but he was a really good prospect. He played some, his first year at center in preseason, albeit preseason. He looked like he's ready for the role. I think he's born to play center. I think they got a really good player. They groomed him. I had to play guard last year in, some situations, and he did that. But I think he's a physical player. I see him decleat people. I think he gets to the second level. I don't think anybody should try to compare him to Jason Kelce at this point. That wouldn't be fair to him. But I think he's going to be a good player. And if your center isn't good, your offensive line is not going to be good, Ike. So, I mean, all eyes will be on him. But I want to see him against, the bigger guys inside, the guys like Dexter Lawrence. Let's see, how he handles some of those bigger guys. You win those battles with leverage and strength, and that's what Kelce always had. So I want to see him against some of the big guys inside this league.
Baldy, I'm curious your overall thoughts on the Eagles offseason so far. I mean, obviously the Saquon Barkley addition is huge. Kind of some mixed messaging on some of the defensive moves. What's been your big takeaway so far from the Eagles offseason?
Honestly, I thought some of it, Jack, and this is just me. This isn't, I don't have sources or anything like that. I felt like the end of the season was such a stink that they had to get some of the stench from the end of that season out of the building. And let's just bring in some fresh people. Like, I felt like that was part of it. I think Devin White, when he gets healthy, is going to be the best linebacker they've had here in a long time. He got beat out last year by KJ Britt, but he wasn't really healthy. So he has a chance to, he can run and hit with the best of them in this business. See, getting C.J. Gardner-Johnson back, he never really had a chance in Detroit with the injuries that he had early, but he was a really good player here. I think everybody likes Bryce Huff, but he has not been an every down player. Maybe he will be here. So we got to kind of see that. And then, we got to see what some of these other linebackers. Zach Bond looks like he's a better pass rusher than he is an off-the-ball inside linebacker. When he's played, Oren Burks has been, the fourth linebacker in San Francisco for a while. So we'll see what he's like and if he can work into a rotation. So, they've done a lot, but they had a lot to do. That was a horrible defense last year. Only the Commanders gave up more touchdown passes than the Eagles last year. So they had a lot of work to do, and I think they started that.
We've talked a lot about Vic Fangio coming in, right, and being sort of now the architect of the defense here, and he's going to have a chance to put his imprint on the defense. The one thing we haven't necessarily been able to nail down, Baldy, is what from a scheme standpoint, type of defense should we expect from Vic Fangio? Is this a 3-4 defense? Is it a 4-2-5 defense? Is it a 4-3 defense? What should we expect from a scheme standpoint from a Vic Fangio defense?
No, I think it'll be multiple. I think, when teams going to run the ball, I think they can line up much like the Eagles have the last couple seasons and, play a bare front. He's more than capable of doing that. His linebackers are going to make a lot of plays. His two safeties, starting safeties, are going to line up basically in the same position every single snap. They disguise until the snap, and then they move. So, whether they're getting to a rat or winning a man free or, a robber or whatever they might be trying to do, they kind of do it from the same shell. If you go back and look at Denver when he was there as a head coach, you look at Kareem Jackson along with, with Sutton, and, they lined up left safety, right safety every down, and then they moved from it. They did things similar before Javon Holland got hurt last year in Miami. And so you should expect, Reed and CJ and, the guys on the back end to kind of line up like that in basically a very simple shell up until the snap, and then they'll sort of show their hand after the snap.
Well, you talked about Vic Fangio. On the other side of the ball, they go from Brian Johnson to Kellen Moore. What do you think the Eagles are getting in Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator?
I think I think Kellen Moore is creative in some ways. I think you'll see players move around. I think you'll see some pre-snap motion. I think you'll see an emphasis more on one back than a committee of backs, depending on the health or situation. But I don't think you'll see three backs rotating the way they have here. I think you'll have a backup to Saquon, but it's going to be Saquon's team. He's going to be out there on third downs. They're going to move him around. But I think the big thing really is, how are they going to coach Jalen? They're going to coach him hard the way he wants to be coached, or they're going to be soft on him? I mean, he needs to be coached hard. He needs to bounce back. He needs it. He knows he needs it. I think, that's got to be part of Kellen's demands as he installs this new offense right now.
I'm glad you brought up Jalen. We've discussed him at times this offseason, but I love to get your opinion on just not so much of is last year what Jalen Hurts is, but can Jalen get back to being that quarterback that we saw in 2022 moving forward? Has anything changed from your perspective about what you think the ceiling is for Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position? Did last year any of that sort of change your outlook on Jalen as a quarterback?
Well, I mean, you saw it, Ike. I mean, he looked awfully detached. He didn't look like a leader last year. He looked like he was just in a zone and detached from the team. And when there were things going on the sideline, the quarterback's got to set a lot of those things down. When the team was in a tailspin, I didn't see him doing any electric things to dig that team out. It's on his shoulders. I mean, they paid him the money to be the guy. He's got to, fix some things. And so, look, Brian Johnson wasn't the guy. I think he has a chance to get back to being an elite quarterback. He's got elite athletic ability. They've surrounded him with talent. They're going to draft an offensive lineman high. I don't know how high, but they're going to draft another one to go with what they've added. And I don't know what Devontae Parker is at this point. Some of the guys they brought in, Paris Campbell. I knew back when Paris Campbell, came out of Ohio State, they had him awfully high. And then certain people in the organization said, no, we want somebody else. They were ready to draft Paris then. So they get him in the building now. We'll see. He'll get a chance. But, you can't ask for a whole lot more for any quarterback in this league than what Jalen has. He's got to go do his job now. They've helped him out. They've changed the coordinators. They've added pieces. Saquon's a big addition. You can't ask for an organization to support their quarterback any more than they have.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and now the Texans are taking that model with C.J. Stroud for sure. Baldy, did the Eagles make a mistake not bringing back Hassan Reddick? What was your reaction to that trade?
Well, I mean, if it's about money, it doesn't make any sense because they just gave Bryce Huff, who's been a part-time player, and I like Bryce. I nicknamed him the Bugatti last year. He looked like an Italian sports car coming off the edge. He loved it, but. He's played less than 50% of the snaps. He started 3 games. He hasn't been an every down player the way Hassan has. And so, Hassan, look, he started the season last year, I think, with a broken thumb, had a big old cast on his hand. Nobody's getting sacks when you're a one-handed bandit out there. So when he got healthy, he had a stretch where he had 11 sacks in 10 games as a full-time player, and he was turning it on. And then the whole team just fizzled down the stretch. But Hassan's a better player. Now, Bryce Huff can be. I've always thought Bryce should play more than what he did in New York. He's bigger than Hassan. He's got a great takeoff. Maybe they'll get more out of him and get more snaps out of him now that they paid him a big signing bonus and big money. See if they can get more out of him as a player. And that means playing the run and knowing situations and doing a lot more than coming on the field when it's 3rd and 12 and everybody knows you're rushing the passer.
Final one for me, Baldy. I got to ask you about just the acquisition of Saquon, and we obviously know what his reputation precedes him as far as the talent and the potential is there. But as far as what's left in the tank moving forward, you feel like it was a good move, and do you think Saquon, at least under these 2 to 3 years that he's going to be here with the Eagles, could sort of be closer to what he was in New York when he reached his potential versus what we saw during those injury-plagued years?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. Like, one, the Giants just screwed this up. Why in the world didn't they give Saquon a contract last year and franchise Daniel Jones and give him a year to see if he could do it? That would have been the smart thing to do. They didn't do it. Now they're paying the price for it. So Saquon's an Eagle. All right, they gave him a contract. He's never played behind an offensive line like this. He needs a runway. He's not a guy that's just going to make people miss in a hole. He doesn't have tremendous, as big and strong as he is, he doesn't have great contact balance. But if you give him a runway, you're going to see big runs from him, explosive runs, 20-plus yard runs, the way we saw from him his rookie year in 2018. I think he's got a tremendous chance to be really good. Get 300 touches, 1,500-plus, 1,500 to 2,000 yards. I think he's got a chance to be really good here, Ike. Yep. And he wants to be here. Organization wants him here. I think he's going to be embraced. I just think, when the Giants play, forget it. He's going to rip them apart, and that's a good thing. It's a division opponent. He's going to want to see them just end up in the cellar, they might very well be.
Brian Baldinger on with here on WIP Afternoons. Will be joining us usually every Wednesday at 4, as long as there's no Phillies game leading up to the draft and after as well. Speaking of the draft, Baldy, heading into it, what would be your number one priority if you were the Eagles?
Well, usually, no matter what the priority is, they usually go straight to the trenches, and that's what they have done. I expect them to do the same thing. They lost. I don't know what Brandon Graham has left. I mean, it might be just a courtesy signing this year, whatever role he has. But, it looked like Josh Sweat was free to go, and Hassan's gone, and we'll see what Bryce does. But we haven't seen much from Nolan Smith. There's edge rusher, a defensive line. You could certainly go offensive line. And they need cornerbacks in the worst way. And so there's going to be a lot of guys in any of those 3 compartments that they could choose from. They're not going to go linebacker, right? No offense, but they're not going to do that. So that's off the mark. And so there's no safety really worth taking very high in this draft. Mm-hmm. So it looks like corner, a defensive line or offensive line looks like would make a lot of sense. They've got picks 50 and 53. I've already told a couple of guys, it wouldn't surprise me to go see him take Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State. He's a 340-pound offensive guard. He fits in with what they do and how they like to play and what they want to do. I don't know, you probably get him at pick 50 or 53 right now. I'm just throwing a name out there, but I really like the kid a lot. Mm-hmm. So, I think they're going to have, Graham Barton's going to be out there from Duke. He's got a lot of flexibility in what position he plays. First, second round, they've got 3 of the top 53 picks. They had a chance to get 3 really good players here at a number of different positions.
Yep.
Well, one of those names I wanted to ask you before getting out of here, Cooper DeJean. He's maybe a corner, maybe a safety. What do you kind of see on tape from him?
He's unbelievable. He can play any position in the secondary. He's got ball skills. He will light you up, like your holiday tree. He's a phenomenal player. I think he's going to run here and test in the next 10 days or something, coming off an injury. But he's going to run really well. There's 3 corners at the top, and he might be right there in the mix with all the other guys that everybody's talking about, Terry and Arnold and Wiggins, the whole group. Like, he's right there. He's a phenomenal football player, and he can return punts. There's a lot to like about what he can do. And in today's world, where you need players that really can play a variety of positions, almost positionless football, like, he could do all of that. But his tackling is what the Eagles lacked last year at every place on defense. He's a very good tackler, and he can play a lot of positions with ball skills up. There's not much not to like about him.
All right, Baldy, appreciate the time, and thanks for being on the show, as always.
Yep,
appreciate it, brother.
My pleasure, Jack. Okay, I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, there he goes. Odyssey NFL insider Brian Baldinger. Make sure to follow the Best Football Show with Brian Baldinger on the Odyssey app or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.